The people closest to you tend to know you the best. Jibri, or as I like to call you, Gibberish the Clown. Is this why you only had 2 people at your wedding? My name is James. This is my take on reality. In this episode, we're going to be talking about Jibri and his relationships with everybody, including himself. Let's get it. Now, just as a note, this video was actually sparked and inspired by one of my longtime subscribers, Wendy. She made the observation and her take. She said by watching the tell-all, she was exposed to Jibri in a way that she wasn't really expecting, and she started to look at him way different. And I agree with that point. I think that after the tell-all, everybody across the board had to reassess how they viewed Jibri and his actions. I will say this. I think that initially, when Jibri first came out, he had a very naive and childish view of the world. He looked at everything and everything was like sunshine and rainbows and pixie dust and fairy tales and big dreams and high hopes and the wonderful world of everything optimistic and positive. And a lot of that is extremely naive. I'm going to be famous because I'm just going to be famous because I love music. And I don't need to know anything else other than my love of music in order to be successful in the music industry. And that's kind of how it felt. I kind of like the idea of dream chase, and I encourage anybody to chase after their dreams. But part of chasing after your dreams, in my opinion, is that you become knowledgeable about the thing it is that you're pursuing. So for instance, if you want to learn how you want to be a famous musician, then you want to study music. Not just the music genre that you want to play in, but if you're going to do rap music, hey, study country, study classical, study jazz, study, because that gives you a broader base of understanding. Study how these artists came up. Study and understand the struggles that they went through to become the great artists that they are. And then try to incorporate that. Take what you need, get rid of the stuff you don't. But you want to take in as much information about a subject matter that you want to pursue as humanly possible. These are all kind of questions that you want to ask about things that you want to pursue. And if you don't do that and you just say, I want to be a famous singer because I sing good and I love music, then that's not enough. It's childish and childlike. And because you're childlike, a lot of times you slip under the radar and people don't really look at you the way they should, given the fact that you're acting so immature. And I think that that's a lot of Jibri's early advantage, is that a lot of folks just kind of looked at him as a clown. He talked a lot of junk and he acted silly. And then, of course, the clothes didn't help. Dressed outlandishly and, big bright colors. The only thing he didn't have was the red nose and big shoes. The dark part of what we noticed, when you start to reassess what's going on with Jibri and how Jibri was acting, and you see how he was responding on the tell-all, how he was like arguing and extremely combative with everybody and real nasty, and even with his friend Daveed, so you start to look at it and say, wait a minute. Then you go back and you watch Jibri's argument and fight in the studio and say, well, Jibri did kind of jump out of pocket real fast about something that had nothing to do with anything. And in fact, he said and confessed that he wasn't really mad at Daveed, but he was mad at his mom. So now you're doing a whole displacement where you're mad at one thing, but you're taking it out on somebody else in a physical capacity. Then you start to think about the fact that when they first met, Daveed is an immigrant from Serbia. He kicks a kid from America into a coma. If you really take a step back and think about it, as an immigrant, if you commit a violent assault especially on an American citizen, you will wind up either on a plane, a train, or a slow boat back to whatever country you came from after you serve your time. Because the cops will be called. If you kick somebody into a coma, you break their arm, or you put them in a wheelchair, the cops get called. And there's no choice and no discretion on that. And DAs will prosecute you. You'll catch a case doing that kind of stuff. Nobody ever talked about Daveed being arrested. So that kind of begs the question, especially watching how John reacted, or how Jibri was acting towards John, and how he was kind of trying to egg him on and trying to get into a fight with John. It begs the question that maybe this is how Jibri is. He didn't just start acting this way. Maybe he's always been this way. This is why after he woke up from a coma, his mom sends him to military school. Now, I understand if, somebody kick your kid into a coma, you put him in Taekwondo, or you put him in karate or something, or boxing, wrestling, something. you know, so that he can not get kicked into a coma again. Like, oh, son, you got to learn to hold your hands. You taking hard L's, son. You know, I can understand that, but to send him away, it was probably Jibri. When Jibri was sitting there arguing with his mom about the dinner that he had cooked with Miona, and he was sitting there acting like he couldn't control himself. When you see that, you start to reassess it and say that, wow, maybe Jibri is a lot more dangerous than I originally thought. One of the more annoying things about Jibri is that he has this kind of position that the world owes him something. The world owes him adoration. The world owes him support, and everybody should be in his corner, and nobody should ever question anything that he does. So if he makes a mistake, if he, like the mother said, I think previously in the season, if he leaps before he looks, if he jumps off of an overpass onto a train and he hurts himself real bad, which he did, then everybody is just supposed to support that and pretend like that was a good idea. And if you don't support it, he says things like, oh, you're just a hater and you're jealous. That's also childish and immature. If you get into a situation where you think the world owes you something, a lot of times you take the position that somehow everything is all about you. Nobody owes you anything. Your parents don't owe you anything. Your parents gave you everything they owed you. You're alive. One of the things that annoys the hell out of me is people will be 30 and 40 years old, 50 years old, and they want to sit around and talk about, when I was a child, I didn't get hugged enough. Now, if something terrible happened to you when you were a child, it is extremely traumatic, I don't blame you at all. But if your worst situation is, when I was 16, my mother did not buy me a BMW, then I have no pity for you whatsoever. Get over it. Put on your big boy pants and move on with your life. Now, if you listen to him, and when he talks about the world owes me, here's what Jibri thinks the problem is.
I'm happy. They see that I'm really just pushing forward and I'm doing well, and it's a lot of jealousy.
Jibri, what do you think your family and friends are jealous of?
We look good together. We shine. So when you shine, people try to dim your light.
That in itself is gibberish. Gibberish the clown back in full effect, because it's childish and it's immature. Throwing around terms like, oh, that's haters, and everybody's jealous of me, and they're trying to keep me from shining. You didn't say anything. Why do you think people don't want your relationship to work? Now, the two people that you're talking about, family and friends, which you're talking about your parents and you're talking about your bandmates, and more directly, you're talking about your good friend, Daveed. When you think about Daveed versus Jibri, or Daveed and, more to the point, Jibri's parents, right? Those individuals want nothing but the best for Jibri. They want Jibri to be successful. They're trying to give him every advantage. If anything, they're trying to keep him from sabotaging himself. And he's taking that as, oh, they're haters and they're jealous because they won't let me do whatever runs through my mind. No, see, a true friend and parents are not there to just blindly support everything that you want to do. They're there to help you achieve the things that you want for yourself. That's what a good friend does. A good friend and a lover wants you to have the things that you want most for yourself. And not only do they want you to have those things, they want to help you get those things. And Jibri's parents and Daveed are all in the camp where they're trying to push Jibri into becoming the thing that he can be. They want him to live up to his fullest potential. I don't see how this is a terrible thing. I don't see how the world is against you because they're trying to push you to become better than what you are. That's not them being against you. There are people in this world who don't have the support systems that you do. There are people in this world who wish they had parents who would take them in and support them and help them with their husband or their wife, or give guidance to how they can make their relationship better. They wish that they had a friend who would see you in a situation and say, hey man, I don't want you to struggle, so I'm gonna give you $150,000 to $200,000 truck so you can go make money for you and your family. That's not a hater. You have no idea what a hater is, or somebody who's jealous of you, or somebody who's trying to undermine your situation. Finally, if you look at the problem that he had with Ari and John, it's all about him. John, oh, I remember when he was picking on people when I was a child. I was getting picked on when I was a child. I would get picked on by the other kids for being different. You, according to you, you were picked on because you were a black kid in a white town. has nothing to do with John and Thais. If you listen to John talk to the producers even earlier on, he said that his brother is not being used by Thais. She genuinely loves him. He said that his brother genuinely loves her. He said that their relationship is actually good and they're good for each other. That's not a hater situation and that's not a bully situation. Things don't happen in a vacuum. If you really listen to what's going on, Thais doesn't want John in the house, so she's actively trying to get Patrick to separate himself from John. So she's trying to sabotage that relationship. And despite the fact Thais is trying to sabotage the relationship between John and Patrick, John still admires Thais and thinks that and supports that relationship. That's to John's credit. That's not the act of a bully. That's not an act of somebody trying to take advantage of somebody. Also with Ari, oh, you're trying to kill his dreams. At the same time, like she said, I don't necessarily, and this is the messed up part, I'm pissed at Gibberish the Clown because you got me supporting Ari, and Ari is not my favorite person at all. She is not my favorite character at all. In this situation where she was paying for him to be able to go to MMA, because MMA ain't free, so she's paying for him to go to MMA. She brings him to America, and then he goes out and he has a match with a young lady, or he has a practice with a young lady. He's rolling around on the ground up between the legs and stuff. Yeah, that's a conversation that you should have with your loved one. That's a conversation you might want to have with your wife. Hey, babe, they plan on putting me with this young lady, so she can get practice and I can get practice because she does whatever technique or whatever reason they have for putting the two of y'all together, right? And you want to explain that to your wife. You want to include her in your situation. You don't want your wife to ever walk in to your rehearsals or your practices and be surprised. That's not a hater thing and that's not a jealous thing. That's a you will respect me thing. That's a respect issue, not a jealousy issue. Then he talks about like he wants Daveed to have more empathy, to try to understand what's going on with him. But if you watch how his speech patterns and how he talks to people and how he regards to people, he doesn't listen to anybody else and what they have to say or what their opinions are. He doesn't respect anybody else's opinion, but demands that everybody respects his. He doesn't want to listen to what other people think. He only wants to be able to say what he wants to say and have everybody fall in line and support him. And again, if you think that that's how relationships work, then you are a horrible friend. He's not a good person. And he's fallen under the radar in a lot of ways, but now I see you, player. In Gibberish the Clown, you're a joke. That's my take. I'm James, and this is my take on reality. I'm out. 'Cause I've been living life